AI demands talent, yes, but I believe the talent demand for Bitcoiners is the opportunity when everybody's going in one direction. Yeah, when you're talking about do we need to look at that differently to how you value normal businesses, I think I had this conversation a couple of years ago with somebody I know in my network who consistently tells me about great investments in businesses and can't really understand that every time I respond to them and kind of say, look, I will never invest in a business that doesn't hold Bitcoin again. So if we start with that question, do they hold Bitcoin? And the answer is no, then I believe the business is ignoring a liability and proactively losing shareholder value and building those up over 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 10 years. It works indefinitely, but it allows the people joining the business, it allows the people in the business to benefit from that hope, if you like. Last time we were under sunglasses and shades, a t-shirt on. One of my best friends sent me a message the other day saying, I've seen your intention to float going out, but I did not expect to find this on the rabbit hole. And it was a screenshot of me on your podcast. I was like, got you.
Really cool. But yeah, then I can say, hi Scott, how are you doing? Everything fine in your end?
Yeah. Is that you starting, Robin, by the way?
Absolutely, yeah. Let's get started.
Should we start again? Go again.
Then hi Scott, how are you doing? Everything fine on your end?
Yeah, everything's good on my end. Been extremely busy this year. And yeah, it's all good. Thank you.
Absolutely, really cool. And I think we've had you on before already one time, but under Sanchez, as we just talked about before. What kind of like encouraged or inspired you to go a little bit even further out the Bitcoin rabbit hole in the published world also?
Yeah, by the published world, I suppose you mean me stating my real name, my real business, and heading towards IPO quite soon. Yeah, so what inspired me, I suppose, it would probably be the mission that I believe Bitcoin adoption, as I think all Bitcoiners truly do, that Bitcoin is good for everyone, people, businesses, larger corporations, and drives the right behaviors and incentives across society. So in order to be able to join that mission and spread the education, the integration and the adoption of Bitcoin, I believe we had quite a compelling opportunity with the business and moving from an anonymous account and combining my passion for Bitcoin with my passion for the business was a great opportunity just because of the way the business is set up and the fact that the business is reliant on people, network effects, education, which has a synergy with Bitcoin, which also relies on those aspects to drive adoption. So, as you know, I've been a Bitcoiner, and my personal sort of savings and balance sheet solution was found, and in October 2021 decided to implement that into the group of companies as well. So we've been buying Bitcoin on the balance sheet for 4 years, and now we want to move from private to public status in order to accelerate the growth of the business and join that mission. And I think the inspiration is the people who've gone before. I have to just give credit to everybody who's been there pushing for Bitcoin adoption when it was more difficult to do that publicly over the last 4 and 8 years. So that's the inspiration.
Yeah, it gets easier now. Like there's I talked about that a lot in the last few weeks, where the big public opponents of Bitcoin are kind of silent. Like of course we have the strategy thing with JP Morgan now. There's like always some banks. I still get this, like, if you want to have a business, it's harder for banks if you have Bitcoin in the name or like something crypto related. That, like, there's still like things from there, but it gets like easier every single year with like ETFs passing and then all of those things. So, like, I think that's and I think treasury companies actually also make it easier because they just give a template of like, hey, there like can be super successful companies that have a Bitcoin association or are even Bitcoin companies, and all those things kind of make it easier for all the people that come in the future into the Bitcoin space that have no problems with banks, have no problems with the regulators, and like have no scrutiny from investors or something like that.
Yeah, and I think business adoption's a critical component, and it will move from the faster adopting businesses can be the private businesses who may be stacking in silence and not wanting to discuss it because there is still the regulatory burdens. But the way in which I see this business going forward and the model that we've chosen is a combination of the Bitcoin strategy and the operational business growing as a direct result of the Bitcoin strategy. So just to give people an idea of what the business is, it's an international executive recruitment company. Some people might say headhunting business, which is a less friendly term for it. And we work across a number of different sectors. So we work across business advisory, with consulting firms, we work across professional services with the big four, with PwC, KPMG, those guys. We work across logistics, and I won't name the businesses we work with. I'll just name the global ones that people recognize, like UPS in logistics have been a client. And then civil engineering businesses, facilities management businesses, environmental services. So the business has had a Bitcoin strategy for 4 years, but it's uncorrelated to Bitcoin. So when we first started buying Bitcoin, price was high in 2021. Price has come down, but the business revenues have doubled. We can buy more Bitcoin. And going forward, combining that business with the Bitcoin Treasury strategy, what we want to do is prove the model and come out and say, look, we've been doing this for 4 years, which makes it a more comfortable conversation with people who are considering studying Bitcoin and businesses who are considering integrating Bitcoin, when they can see businesses of a similar scale, similar size have already done it. And this was the result. And then going forward, as a public entity, Bitcoin Treasury strategy actually allows us as a public entity to attract high revenue generating talent. So how do you scale an executive recruitment company? Well, the biggest barrier to scaling an executive recruitment company is actually attracting people who will generate revenue. So the people in the business are quite self-sovereign at their desk. All them divisions I mentioned and industries I mentioned there, you can come into the business and you can build your own industry. And that's because you've got your network with them clients, you've got your network with them candidates, and you take it from start to finish. And you're paid a modest basic salary in our industry, and you're paid high commissions. So how do we attract talent to actually grow this business and show other businesses and show our industry that they need to study Bitcoin? Well, we say, okay, well, what we can do now is offer individual performance-based share options to attract talent from our direct competitors. So we can say you can have the same salary, you could have the same commission in theory, but also what you can have is a performance-based share option where if you join the business, if you deliver this amount of revenue and this amount of profit, what we will do with it is buy more Bitcoin. And what you will get out of doing that and delivering that performance is share options in the future. And building those up over 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 10 years. It works indefinitely, but it allows the people joining the business, it allows the people in the business to benefit from that hope, if you like, of Bitcoin, that in the future, the value appreciation that we all expect in Bitcoin will lock in their time and energy that they're providing to the business today. So we believe we have a very interesting model that compounds growth between operational and Bitcoin Treasury strategy. And it's an interesting model that's hard to replicate in other industries somewhat, but people will find their way of injecting Bitcoin and growing their businesses.
I love treasury companies that actually have a profitable business model. Like this is like I'm very cautious with treasury companies that don't have any operational business, just because I ask myself like how it can be sustainable in the long run. But especially if you already have a business model, and I think that's why also strategy was so successful, because they have a $500 million revenue business per year that just keeps on giving them opportunities that they can get to the bank and can get cheaper loans, launch all those other products. Without that, I think it's like very hard, but it's interesting to see like even treasury companies that don't have that. But before we get into the treasury rabbit hole, I have like one more question. Because you have gone now with the business public, what do you think are still the hurdles for other companies? Because like I know like one of the advantages with the podcast is I talk with so many people in the industry, and I know for a fact there are a lot of businesses, small and medium-sized private businesses that stack every single month Bitcoin, but they don't say it. There are big brands that you probably know. They're not public but private, and they all stack Bitcoin. Not all, but like a substantial amount, more than I thought, honestly. I don't see an advantage of going public with that because they don't want to go public anyways. They don't want to attract retail investors. They don't want to do all those things. And they're like, we can only like not benefit from that. The only disadvantages from that. What do you think are kind of the hurdles for companies just normalizing, yeah, we have a Bitcoin treasury strategy and like we just do that? Because like I feel like every company eventually will do it.
Every company eventually will either be a company that saves its value and stores its value in Bitcoin, or one that stores its value in fiat or other mechanisms. But you're right there. The opportunity for those businesses, some of them who are dealing business to consumer, the obvious answer is medium of exchange, and it's free marketing for the business. You have the most powerful, and I don't mean most powerful as in most powerful group, but I mean it's the most powerful driver and incentive to Bitcoiners to see a business embracing Bitcoin. So I'm more inclined to spend my money with the business that accepts a Bitcoin than I am with the one that doesn't. I think the normalization of business is of Bitcoin in business is starting to permeate, and we need to catch that wave and accelerate it and normalize the conversation. Because what we're seeing from our side, the reason I wasn't stating that we owned Bitcoin on our balance sheet over the last few years is because of the risk from a regulatory perspective and all that side of it. But also because at the time it would mean that I was putting the sort of the burden of being a Bitcoin holder on people who are not Bitcoin holders in the business. So you don't want them worrying about the Bitcoin price going down 80% when I'm looking at the revenue going up and doubling and thinking we can buy more Bitcoin. I don't want them ending the day going, but I don't understand Bitcoin and the price is actually a lot lower than it was a couple of years ago. I want them just to perform. So there's that aspect of the privacy. And then the other aspect is the business risk, career risk. And we've purposely made sure that we have XCE, Connecting Excellence, is the holding group. And Spencer Riley is maintaining its brand and its presence with all the clients we've worked with over the last decade. And if them clients want to have a conversation about Bitcoin, there's now an easy, intuitive kind of, okay, they'll speak to me about Bitcoin if I want to have the conversation. But it's not in their face. It's not, you must like Bitcoin to work with us. The consultants carry on with their clients as they are. But I think what we're building is a Bitcoin executive recruitment division for mid, senior, C-level executives. And the business is set up that when I say build a division and do a new market, there's very little cash cost, if any, to doing that. It's just, do we have a network? Can we implement the same skills we have within that network to provide revenue for the business and generate growth for our clients and find better opportunities for our candidates? Yes, we can. So we started doing that only a few weeks ago, and we've been retained by a Bitcoin only investment fund, looking for chief investment officers, vice president of client relationships. having conversations with a Bitcoin only venture capital fund, and we're having conversations with 2 or 3 really interesting businesses in mining, and one that I probably can't say what it's doing because they're the first to do it, where we're looking to help them build boards, build exec teams, and there's a demand for talent in Bitcoin. Now, I'll get to where I flip this round, in that there's a demand for talent in Bitcoin, and we're seeing businesses say to us, okay, we want either someone who's a Bitcoiner who already works in this space, who's qualified, experienced, and can deliver in this role, or someone from the traditional sector who's, if you like, a closet Bitcoiner and not yet stated that they're a Bitcoiner. So chief investment officer from a traditional investment bank, maybe, who is a Bitcoiner, is passionate about Bitcoin and wants to find their role within the Bitcoin space. Now, the environment that provides as we go forward is they can have a confidential conversation with us, and we can be the gateway for them to confidentially find a role in Bitcoin. So the candidates we work with tend to be in roles performing extremely well, but they want to confidentially signal to us and say, hey, here's my experience. Here's the salary levels I would need. Here's the area that I would like to work in. And then we match that opportunity with them as we go forward into the future. And what I'm seeing and what I'm feeling is that the businesses who dismiss Bitcoin are already beginning to see people looking to leave who are passionate about Bitcoin. So if you're a really senior executive and you bravely decide to just mention the word Bitcoin in a boardroom, if that's met with hostility or dismissiveness, then the reason you've mentioned it, it's not just that sentence where you said, hey, what do we think about Bitcoin? Should we look at a Bitcoin strategy? There's hours of research gone into it before then. There's probably a stacking period gone in. And for them to have the bravery to mention that in a boardroom means they're probably a Bitcoin maxi. They've just not told anyone in the business. So if the business doesn't embrace the conversation, when that person leaves that boardroom, the first thing they're thinking is, this is not the place for me in the future. And then that drives them to think, okay, where can I find the role that is going to satisfy me, the mission that is going to satisfy me? And they're not going to be looking for them positions asking for larger salaries. They just want the mission. They want the right opportunity. Not saying they'll work for a lot less money, but they see the future and they want to be part of it. So I think the flip side of this sort of privacy within business about it is, as long as, doesn't matter whether the business is publicly stating we're into Bitcoin, that's entirely up to them. But I would recommend that businesses embrace the conversation internally, because if you dismiss the conversation internally, you might just lose your highest performing staff.
That's a really interesting one. It reminds me of the career risk, which is a little bit different, like the talent risk from the other side. Like there's like this career risk going on, where if you mention Bitcoin, you might be unsafe. Like if you're the CFO and you want to bring a Bitcoin strategy, maybe people decide like, oh yeah, like you might not be the right CFO, but now it's actually flipping, where they lose talent if they dismiss the Bitcoin strategy, because this talent can also go somewhere else and they have a Bitcoin passion.
Yes. 4 years ago, if you suggested to your CEO that they should study Bitcoin and consider a Bitcoin strategy for the business, you walked into that meeting with career risk. Today, if you walk into that meeting and you suggest to your CEO that they should consider Bitcoin and consider a Bitcoin strategy for the business, it's the business that risks losing you, because the opportunities are growing in the space. So my advice to businesses is just to take a step back and just endeavor to hear the staff who are mentioning it, study it, and just go off the data and go off the history and make your own decisions, but don't dismiss the conversation.
That's a really interesting point. And so this is even more than I initially thought. Like, you're also transforming your company then in an actual Bitcoin company. You're providing like services basically for Bitcoiners.
Yeah, right now we're building that division. We want to hear from people in the space who are looking for opportunities. We want to hear from companies who are looking to grow great teams and drive the business forward. But in the future, I believe we can build a business that provides the fractional Bitcoin officers and the full-time Bitcoin officers and the Bitcoin specific talent to the traditional businesses that we work with, as the education and the integration and the adoption of business use of Bitcoin increases. So we work with significant companies around the world, and most of them don't have a Bitcoin strategy. In fact, very few of them. So we want to be that conduit between people who want to find a role within Bitcoin and also the opportunities that come around in the traditional space, because the FTSE 100, the S&P 500, all of these companies at some point in the future need a Bitcoin strategy, in my opinion. So if we can become that business that provides that opportunity to them and still delivers and grows in our core operations as well, then I believe that sets us up to be the gateway to entering Bitcoin for executives. And I think I'm passionate about growing the understanding of Bitcoin within businesses. So while my entire industry talks about AI, we're all in on Bitcoin.
I love that one. Like everyone is focused on AI and how to do AI, and then like you're focusing on Bitcoin, which is, I think those are the two main things going on. But I think you have to know about both of them. I always say to the Bitcoiners, like, research more about AI because you already understand Bitcoin. And for the people that are only in the AI, like, really fast study Bitcoin because you're missing out big time.
AI has been incredible for our business from a point of view of speed and decision making, and being able to sort of exponentially grow our responses in just across the business. People being able to, like, right, the administrative side of it, the principles side of it, all of that is bolstered and accelerated by AI, and allows people to spend more time speaking directly to clients and candidates, which provides better results. Where I'm referring to our industry focused on AI, a lot of them are looking to build divisions to place people in AI. Now, thinking about that, AI demands talent, yes, but I believe the talent demand for Bitcoin is the opportunity when everybody's going in one direction. So, yeah.
I love that. Now to the treasury companies, because I think there's so many different ones, and like especially this year, treasury companies were really like the big topic in my subjective view, at least. How do you look at treasury companies, like from strategy on to like treasury companies are pure plays, the treasury companies like yours where there's an operational businesses, but then they also want to have the treasury side of it?
I mean, the way I look at it is everything is good for Bitcoin, and everything is good for Bitcoin businesses in some respect. You've seen Larry Fink positively speaking about Bitcoin, even making price predictions close to the 1 million mark. You've got JP Morgan now releasing products to do Bitcoin, and that's a direct result of the pioneers, Michael Saylor, in 2020, I think, starting to publicly advocate for Bitcoin. That's the second order effect, is the adoption is growing throughout business. And then you look at, you're saying pure play Bitcoin treasury companies. The first businesses that have gone as not far off pure play Bitcoin treasury companies have had extreme success. And regardless of the short term sentiment, those companies are holding unbelievably pristine balance sheets if you zoom out 4 to 8 years. And what they've done is cleared regulatory landscapes in their jurisdiction for all businesses to follow. And what they've also done is brought new interest into the space, both from investors who are retail investors who are now studying Bitcoin as a direct result of those businesses that are now studying Bitcoin as a direct result of those businesses, and investment banks and traditional sectors now looking at and being aware of and studying Bitcoin as a direct result of those businesses. So I'm extremely pleased to see how fast the space is growing, and I'm looking forward to how fast it'll grow into the future as well. I see us as different, and I do see it as an operating business with a 4-year history of buying Bitcoin as a private business is quite a powerful message. I think we'll probably be the first one to IPO with 4-year history of stacking through an 80% bear market and growing our revenues double in some years throughout that period. And I think we'll be one of the ones that people look at and say, okay, there's a traditional business utilizing the Bitcoin Treasury strategy and compounding the value in their operational business, driving more revenues and cash flows to buy more Bitcoin in those periods of time in the future where sentiment is not good. We have a counter-cyclical balance between the business. And it doesn't matter what's happening to the Bitcoin price. That doesn't stop 2 weeks ago a business making a fast decision in the USA to hire someone and agree to be pleased to pay a just shy of $100,000 to hire that individual. The individual might not be a Bitcoiner. That company probably doesn't understand Bitcoin. It doesn't make any difference to our operational business. So I think we're well insulated from a counter-cyclical point of view. But when we talk about the Bitcoin division and when we talk about what we want to do with that, we're also synergized in helping the education, integration, and adoption. And we have 100,000 connections with the consultants in our business across multiple sectors, across multiple regions. And as the Bitcoin awareness begins to increase, and as the risk of discussing Bitcoin in your career decreases, we would like to be able to be there to maybe drop some orange pills across that 100,000 senior, mid and exec level connections that we have, of course, and become an integral part of the corporate adoption story.
I want to tell you about something very special to me. It's called Microseed. If you hold your Bitcoin in self-custody, and you should, you know how critical it is to secure your seed phrase. You should not have them on paper. You should not have them on anything else than titanium. With Microseed, you can engrave your 12 or 24 word seed phrase, the entire seed phrase, onto a 1-inch small washer. Yes, just one washer. All 24 words on that one washer. You can hide that thing everywhere. And even better, you don't need to buy a new kit every time you have to get a new wallet. You can make unlimited backups because Microseed is not selling the washer. Microseed is selling the device that stamps the washer. So you get the full kit with the device, with the washers, with the hammer, with everything you need to get started today. And you can make with that unlimited amount of backups. Go now to microseed.io. Again, that's microseed.io to get your last backup tool you ever need. The most important thing for your Bitcoin journey is not buying Bitcoin, but it's how to keep them. And yes, you have maybe the right tools, but how do you actually go ahead and stick it all together so it's the most secure for you personally? Self-custody is a deeply personalized journey, and the Bitcoin way is helping you exactly finding that correct setup for you personally. They are also helping you with securing your own cybersecurity. And if you want to go one step above all that, you can even get a consultation for a Plan B residency. Go to thebitcoinway.com/Robin and you will get a 30-minute free consultation. I finally and officially mine Bitcoin. This is not just something to stack more Satoshis, but it's most importantly also to support the network. Individual miners are the ones that keep the Bitcoin network decentralized. And by the way, you get KYC free Bitcoin. That's why I use simplemining. I get an actual proper Bitcoin miner. They set it up for me. They repair it if it breaks down. And most importantly, they let me choose the pool and even connect my own full node. I'm completely sovereign and I'm completely in control, and I can sign up with Ocean, no account needed. I just give them a Bitcoin address and then there's mining going on. No KYC, nothing. So if you're ready to mine Bitcoin, go to simplemining.io, tell them you come from Robin, and let's mine Bitcoin together. I love that. That's really interesting. I'm always looking at the thing that we are currently living through, the treasury companies. I think it's just barely getting started, because I think we barely just see what's actually possible. We think it's long term because like strategy has been in there since like 5 years, but it's like an early, like it's like basically the first one to do something with Bitcoin.
Yeah, there's confusion in the traditional investor space. There is, and what it looks like to me is that period of adoption between 2013 and 2015 maybe, where people think naturally when they first come into the space in Bitcoin, you would say you go from skeptic to trader. And I think a lot of them are, who are not Bitcoiners, who are investing in these businesses and maybe looking at it as a trade, buy low, sell high. And the reality is professional investors sometimes will buy on the way up and sell on the way down. And I think the more they're educated, they've got to go through that 4-year proof of work and building of conviction in this space. But what they're not seeing, and that's hard to communicate with them, probably when you speak to traditional investors in this space, and you look at companies that have maybe had a low valuation to MNAV that you would maybe consider pure plays, those investors aren't factoring in Bitcoin. They're not factoring in the fact that those businesses, whether they're holding hundreds of millions on the balance sheet of the world's only finite, only asset that can be transferred anywhere in the world without a third party, they're not factoring in the price appreciation of that, and that the businesses with hundreds of millions of Bitcoin on the balance sheet are one day going to be valued as billions on the balance sheet. And I think that bit's lost and will come with education and will be understood in the future. But if all of them understood what me and you understand right now, Robin, then the price of Bitcoin and the price of those investments would probably be up.
MNAV is interesting because like this is like the main metric a lot of people look for treasury companies. Do you value companies different to Bitcoin? Like, do you value companies that don't have a Bitcoin treasury companies different to like Bitcoin companies that are the company that have a treasury strategy in the public market? Or do we have to like develop new valuation schemes because not a balance sheet actually grows and not gets decreased in purchasing power because it's like Bitcoin and no longer like US dollar or euros?
Yeah. The balance sheet becomes one of the most important assets within the business. So you're working your balance sheet. And I suppose that's where I come from the point of view of our Bitcoin strategy, is working the balance sheet and building a pristine balance sheet, holding the world's best asset, in my opinion. And the operating business will grow as a direct result of that by attracting the highest performing talent to drive more revenues and cash flows. Yeah, when you're talking about do we need to look at that differently to how you value normal businesses, I think I had this conversation a couple of years ago with somebody I know in my network who consistently tells me about great investments in businesses and can't really understand that every time I respond to them and kind of say, look, I will never invest in a business that doesn't hold Bitcoin again. So if we start with that question, do they hold Bitcoin? And the answer is no, then I believe the business is ignoring a liability and proactively losing shareholder value. So I think you will see the valuations become more mainstream when people are looking at calculating MNAV. But we're starting as a very small market cap in order to give us the opportunity to drive talk and growth. But what I would say on our MNAV is I believe that the business valuation, the business history, the business opportunity, the board and the team and combine all of that, I would say that you could say that we were IPOing at a 1, but we won't be measured by that in the future, I'm sure. But what I intend to do and what the team intend to do is drive the operating business to the point where, well, if you're in a situation where somebody's looking at valuing the business, they can do our EBITDA multiple, and then they can add the assets to that. And then they can add the sentiment, and they can add the talent, and they can add the financial products that we put in place as their own measure on top. But yeah, I'm looking forward to how the space continues to deliver and innovate, because some ideas come in and then go. Some ideas come in for measurements and stay. I think it's good to see that filter. Bitcoin is an incredible filter. The people within Bitcoin are generally speaking very forward-thinking individuals and at the forefront of what is going to be quite a wake-up call for the world and business over the next 10 years.
I tend to agree with, like, it's like Bitcoin and businesses, like it only got really apparent to me like in the past couple of weeks. I was always like very defensive and saying like I don't like to have to do anything with Bitcoin Treasury companies, but actually now starting to go down that rabbit hole way more. I started with just like buying some strategy stock and diving deeper into the whole world of strategy, because I think like this is always the same as I did with crypto. I first started with Bitcoin research, then with other cryptos. Then I was like, oh, it's only Bitcoin. I don't know if how I will discover that with treasury companies. I think treasury companies are a different story because like operational businesses and all of that. So I probably have to value it more than I did before Bitcoin, where I invested in publicly traded companies and all of that. And it's interesting for me how it's actually very normal to look at Bitcoin as the best performing asset. So the companies that adopt it first will become the best performing companies if they also have a great business in their industry. If you compare two competitors and they have kind of a similar a similar performance business wise, and the one has Bitcoin and the one counts on fiat, like it's very clear which one will win. At some point, the competitor can actually drop prices, they can drive innovation, they can invest more in branding, in marketing and sales and all of those things. They will just drive out all the other businesses. And then I'm looking at strategy. I'm like, is it fair to say that the company that has the most Bitcoin in a Bitcoin denominated world where Bitcoin is global money will also be the biggest company in the world? And I'm like, will anyone ever be able to, or like at least in the medium term, in the next like 10, 20 years or 30 years, will anyone ever be able to buy more Bitcoin than strategy? Like they have now 600,000, they probably come to like 700 or 800, maybe even close to 1 million. I don't know. But I don't know. I ask myself the question more and more. I'm like, will strategy be the biggest company in the world? Like, do you look at something like that where I'm like, the treasury companies like strategy or like profitable business that like yours will actually dominate in the future in their industries because they have the superior asset and the superior monetary strategy?
I believe strategy will be the biggest company in the world, yes. You mentioned there, will anyone catch them? Now, if you were running a global bank or investment firm or whatever, pick any business, and you wanted to catch strategy, but strategy's success was harming your business right now. Think Jamie Dimon, JP Morgan. If you go out and try to catch strategy, you need to do it publicly, which lifts strategy, which means everybody else follows you, which means you trigger a race. And the result of that race is everything else about your business model is compromised and dies. So I think they'll try to catch him, of course, but I think they need to do it in sly roundabout ways, like, you know, ETF positions. When you take an ETF position, you don't declare, hey, we've bought 100,000 Bitcoin today. So I think they'll try to catch, but we'll try to make sure they don't make it obvious that they're chasing. And then when you think about just specific industries, our industry is extremely well suited to this because people are on lower basic salaries with higher commissions, which means if there's an individual has a year where they don't perform as highly as they did the year before, they cost the business less. And therefore, when we've had economic downturns, we've still managed to, in 2020, for example, we still managed to maintain profitability, but our revenues have dropped. So I think we're in a very unique position in our industry. And I would obviously like us to become the biggest business in the industry from a value point of view. And that can only be done by having an aggressive Bitcoin treasury strategy and growing the operating business. With that, I suppose with that in mind, you say, could you become the biggest business in your industry? In executive search, how many hundreds of years do you think executive search will continue to go on for? Because at some point in the future, if you're the only one holding Bitcoin, you will be the only one. So yeah, I believe there's a huge opportunity to disrupt the executive search industry. And on a much smaller scale than strategy, if we can deliver and execute that, then every competitor has a decision to make. And the simple decision is, do we start buying Bitcoin and talking about it as well or not?
Which also not only is good for them, but it's also massively good for all the businesses that already do it. And I love that concept. It really aligns incentives really, really nicely. What do you think is like next for Bitcoin and Bitcoin treasury companies? Do you know what do you kind of expect from the next couple of years or decade for Bitcoin and Bitcoin treasury companies?
I expect over the next 2 to 4 years, it will become a mainstream conversation and mainstream media will pick up interest and become probably confused, but it will create more and more excitement. I think the excitement we've seen in this space has been from 0.3% of the global population. If you take a sample study, very, very few people really, really understand Bitcoin. And a few more understand Bitcoin treasury companies, but those don't necessarily really understand Bitcoin. So I think over the next couple of years, there'll be some bewilderment, some euphoria, and that will drive studying and help people build conviction. And over the next 10 years, I believe by the end of 10 years, businesses will be the first measure you'll look at when you look at a business will be how much Bitcoin does it own on its balance sheet unencumbered. Then what is the operating business and how is the operating business performing? I think we get to that stage at some point in the distance.
It's really interesting when you think about the implications of you adopting Bitcoin. I mean, on an individual level, it has so many implications of like you even asking other questions and all of that. But the purely the financial aspect is you kind of make sure you get as much money towards Bitcoin. And I'm curious if there's the same thing with treasury companies also that have existing businesses that then invest more and more into Bitcoin and maybe even differently allocate capital. So when I think about individuals, and I talked with so many individuals on the podcast already, how they acted financially before Bitcoin and after Bitcoin, in most instances, they got more frugal, they got more careful with where they spent money and were more incentivized to spend money directly into Bitcoin or like save money in Bitcoin. And I'm curious how it will transform businesses because now they have a massive hurdle rate. If you think about you have US dollars as a hurdle rate, everything is a great investment. If you think about Bitcoin as a hurdle rate, everything is a bad investment.
Even to the point where if you'd have stockpiled on eggs or red meat over the last 12 months, it would have been a better investment than the British pound or the euro or the US dollar. The hurdle rate, I mean, Richard Byworth's on our team. And he speaks about this quite a lot. And he sort of sees it as once people understand that Bitcoin is the hurdle rate, then we're already seeing it now, but you see trapped capital racing towards Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin treasury companies that I believe with ours as a forward looking as operational business grows as a direct result of the Bitcoin treasury by leveraging share options, no cash, very little cash costs. That trapped capital's looking for somewhere to go where it can beat the hurdle rate. And when you look at it on a personal individual level, you mentioned your interest in Bitcoin companies this year. I would imagine, I'm guessing here, Robin, that what you've allocated to Bitcoin treasury companies is trapped capital. It's in pension funds, or it's in your pension scheme, but you're not allowed to access for a number of years. Or in Britain, it's in your ISA, where we've just had everybody's trapped capital that's trapped in cash ISAs has just been reduced by our budget, and they've been told to move that cash into a stocks and shares ISA to incentivize people to invest in companies and not hold their money in cash. And this trapped capital, there was over 1.2 trillion pounds worth of trapped capital in ISAs and SIPs in Britain not so long ago. I don't know what the number is today, but when those people start to adopt Bitcoin in their personal life and use as much discipline as they can to start saving in Bitcoin and having more disciplined financial measures, because the future is better if you know, or if you even just hope that your money is going to be worth more in the future than it is today. When they look at the trapped capital and they feel that resentment of, okay, I don't have the freedom with that trapped capital to do what I want to do like I do with my monthly savings, they're going to look to allocate that, and probably look to allocate it in businesses that are holding Bitcoin. And you mentioned where businesses become more disciplined. Quite often that's trapped capital as well, because as a business owner, as a private business owner, what do you do with your excess surplus cash? You can draw it out and pay significant amounts of tax, or you can reinvest it and buy another company, or you can invest it in property and rent that property, rent the property through your own business. But all of these things take significant amount of time, significant amount of resources, significant number of parties who charge significant fees. Or what you could do is just buy Bitcoin and wait.
Just best strategy by a mile. I've heard so many stories of people that forgot about their Bitcoin stacks, and then they could have accessed it again, and they're like, thank God I forgot about it. Otherwise I would have sold it along the way.
Yeah, as long as you've kept hold of the keys and been disciplined in the storage, then I suppose the best way to invest in Bitcoin is to buy a lot of it in the past and forget you've bought a lot of it. Yeah.
That's the best. I think Knut 2 or 3 episodes ago told about that. Like, he set up his for his mom and for himself, and the mom was like, "Oh, thank you," and never accessed it again. And she is more than him, because she never did anything with the Bitcoin. He told that story.
That's going to cause tax problems in the future.
Yeah. That's true. That's it's really interesting to witness this whole aspect of Bitcoin treasury companies. What else outside of treasury companies are you currently excited about in Bitcoin? Like, if you zoom out in the Bitcoin sphere, there's so much going on. What is kind of the most interesting topic for you within the Bitcoin industry outside of treasury companies?
Most interesting topic for me is usually, it always starts with adoption. And the most interesting businesses I'm seeing being developed, that I can't go into too much detail about, are those who are working hard to provide vehicles access and really easy, intuitive apps or payment facilities that allow people to pay and use pay and use Bitcoin without actually being Bitcoiners or being exposed to Bitcoin, and the incentives that they can provide for people to just save their everyday current accounts in vehicles that allow them exposure to Bitcoin in a probably a less volatile manner. But it's those businesses that are driving the grassroots kind of adoption and the innovation in there that I do get excited about. And then on the other scale of it, I suppose looking at the driving adoption through the traditional investment vehicles and seeing the development of that. But there's a lot of development in the space, and I speak to some incredible people in the industry, and whether it's solving solutions for individuals who are on the journey to beginning to build their savings, and they're at the stage where they're yet to really buy a house and solidify a career and all that kind of thing. That's interesting. If it's people who are at middle stages of their lives and they're looking for the long-term investments, there's great innovation coming into that place. And then if you kind of just take it up to a corporate level, there's just non-stop competitive innovation happening, and I think that's healthy, and it's just going to exponentially grow over the coming years.
Yeah, competition will be huge. And it's also, what is actually, I mean, it's a little off topic, but what do you think the impact of AI will be on businesses?
If it's just in general, I think the opportunity right now over the next 5 to 10 years is to work out and embrace AI to accelerate your business. And give you an example, we use AI, we embrace AI, we can get more done faster, and get more done better. Sometimes you speak to, let's say, examples would be law firms, accountancy firms who actively reject it. And you can go back to them with an answer faster than they could put the answer together, and they wonder how you've done it. It's that, like, you can ignore it as long as you want, but if you embrace it, it's a benefit. And I just think into the future, the AI adoption and the AI advancements, they will be better for society if we have a scarce money. So we will have abundant knowledge, abundant opportunity, but that's only really beneficial with scarce money. Without that, it dilutes the benefits to society and sometimes corrupts the benefits to society. So I think the future is AI plus Bitcoin and abundant energy, which might be, nuclear energy. I think the combination for countries to provide the best future for the businesses in those countries is to really focus on energy production, AI, and Bitcoin.
I love that. It's like the holy triangle.
It is. We're going to look back in 50 years and wonder how we didn't see it. And I mean, yeah, we're just thinking on the planet here, aren't we? But we're speaking to that Adam Back's a key strategic investor in the business. And I think first time I talked him through the business model, he sort of said at the end of it, this could be one of the first traditional businesses that grows as a direct result of the Bitcoin Treasury strategy. But you look at what they've done. I mean, they've put satellites in space over the last few years, and you just think the developments in AI reliant on Bitcoin and energy production to exponentially grow. Who knows where we'll be in 10 or 20 years? It's very difficult for people to comprehend exponential growth, and it's difficult to identify that you're living through it, especially if the state tend to hold it back and distract from that.
I like that. We have one question to ask each and every one of my guests, and the question is, what have you learned outside of Bitcoin since your last appearance on the podcast?
Outside of Bitcoin? What have I learned outside of Bitcoin? I would say what I've learned is that if you believe in something and you believe in a mission and you believe in a cause, then life will be better for you, and life and people will embrace you and join you on that journey, whether they understand the cause or the mission in as much detail as you do, providing that you make it clear to them that that's the direction we're going and you have full conviction. And I would say it's difficult over the time since we last spoke to pick anything that doesn't relate back to the B word, because that is as a direct consequence of it. But I would say it's not directly related to that and is transferable to other passions and missions, providing you have absolute conviction and providing you, I suppose, motivation is for the betterment of a good cause.
I suppose everything is somewhere related to Bitcoin.
Every single opportunity and every single problem that we need to solve draws right back down to the quality of money, which results in finding Bitcoin. Yes.
And really cool. We have an end routine in the podcast where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest actually is.
Forgot about this. Yeah, go ahead.
And the previous guest asked you the question, what changed most about yourself since you adopted Bitcoin that isn't financially?
I think my time preference. That's the number one answer that comes to mind. Time preference. I've always had quite a long time preference. And I remember being at university thinking about career quite a lot. I remember being very young, 13, 15 years old, thinking about how I would build portfolios of assets to protect my family in the future. And at university, as I left university, I made decisions based on how will I provide for the family in my late 20s. And I think since discovering Bitcoin, time preference has just gone exponentially longer. And it just allows you to sort of relax when you're making a decision. And
I love that because you all of a sudden have like a not a safety net, but like a buffer where you can rely on that, and it allows you to like not make the hectic decision. I mean, if we compare it to hyperinflation, people are rushing into the supermarket as soon as they get the salary, and then like it directly use it because they know tomorrow it could already be like 10% less, and the day after tomorrow it can be already half of the value. And so like you are incentivized to make very quick, very fast decision, versus on a Bitcoin standard, it's the complete other way around. You're like, I can lay off that decision for another month because probably the decision gets cheaper over time.
How far you can look and plan into the future is directly correlated with how long you believe the value will be secure in the money that you hold. And if you believe that you're holding a money that will exponentially increase in value over a long enough period of time, then it allows you to make decisions that matter far further into the future. And I think my parents asked me this a couple of years ago, probably when it spiked in 2021. Bitcoin's up 51. Text me saying, what are you going to buy with all that Bitcoin? Now, they're not Bitcoiners, but I remember I had a text from my mum in a group saying, I've seen the Bitcoin price. What are you going to buy with your Bitcoin? Like, time. And just left it at that. And I don't know whether they got what I was meaning, but that is what you buy with Bitcoin. When you hold Bitcoin, you have bought time to think, time to plan, time to wait.
The time is the only thing that is more valuable than Bitcoin. Like that's literally the only thing that you can. I mean, there's like there's friends and families. There's like health, but it all kind of relates back to time. like health relates back to like having time to make yourself good food, to work out yourself. Like all of those things are like actually when you break it down, it's like time is the most valuable thing, because all the other valuable things like spending time with your family, spending time in the gym, spending time just thinking about things, planning things, like it all relates for me back to time. And so like this is the most valuable, scarce resource we have on planet Earth, even more than Bitcoin.
Personally scarce, yes. It will
Scarce,
go
yes.
on for a long time. But if people will sort of say you can't buy time, but you can study Bitcoin. And that might buy you some time.
I would disagree. Like, I think you can buy time, so to a certain degree, man. So like in 2023, what was it? No, in 2024, I did the whole podcast myself. 2025 outsourced. Now I have a team of 3 people. I have a lot more time now. Like, that's because I gave money.
Yeah, I didn't say I don't believe it. I said people say you can't buy time. You can. You can buy Bitcoin. You're right.
That's very true, yeah.
And you can invest time, which you get back in the future. You working on your own to build the podcast as relentlessly as you did in those early days, that was you investing your time. The return on that investment is more time today with the team that support you and back you. That was investing time for return on it.
100%. I love that view. Really cool. Thank you so much, Scott, for being on the podcast. Before I let you go, where can people find you and your company?
They can find the company at XCE Official on X, and they can find the company at XCE Connecting Excellence on LinkedIn. And then they can find me under the handle at BTC Only Scott on X, and they can find me in my normal world as Scott Ellam on LinkedIn. And then our website is xce.io if you want to find out more about XCE Connecting Excellence's Bitcoin powered executive recruitment future. And that will give you a link also to our flagship operating business, Spencer Riley, where you can see a little bit more about what we do and probably meet the team.
Yeah, the normal world, LinkedIn. that's funny.
The legacy world.
The legacy world in LinkedIn. Thank you so much, Scott, for being on the podcast. Also, thank you so much for everyone that is watching and listening, for joining us today. As always, I'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Bye-bye. This content is for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute financial advice.